I'm just wandering around in the pre-summer dusk here, in the Maytime dusk, and I'm going to talk about something that came to mind for me with regard to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Now, as I've said before, I'm a fan of the Indiana Jones series. It was, in addition to Star Wars, in addition to the original trilogy of Star Wars, it was what really was formative for my own imagination. It helped me, imagine, what the adventuresome life would be, and I, thought when I grow up, I want to have adventures. That was sort of my whole idea. I didn't want to grow up and just live the kind of boring life that didn't include having adventures. I wanted to have adventures. So I kept trying to think of the job that meant having adventure, that involved where you get paid to have adventures. And could never come up with it. I mean, I guess you could say law enforcement could be something like that, but I never saw myself doing that. Maybe private eye. Maybe I could be a cool private eye. I don't know, or a not so cool one. But anyway, uh, I'm having become aware of what really goes down in elite circles, including in Hollywood, while still retaining my prior naive fandom of Hollywood products. This is where I'm at right now, and it's where I think a lot of us are at, because I know that the Puritans among us would say, well, look, you know what Hollywood is, right? You know what these people are, you know what they do. Why don't you just stop watching movies? Just stop watching movies, man. And I get it, I understand, and if that's what you're doing, then I'm good with that. But on the other hand, I don't think there's anything wrong with movies as art, okay? And I think you can appreciate movies as art and appreciate what there is to appreciate about them. And I think the things that I enjoyed about the Star Wars original trilogy and about the Indiana Jones movies in the 1980s when I was a lad, I think those things are good and worthy of appreciating. So, no matter what kind of degenerate shit goes down in Hollywood. So that's my stance on it all. I reject the idea that you have to, in order to prove your bona fides as somebody who opposes the depraved elites, that you have to forswear everything that you believed, everything, all the things that you liked, all the movies that you liked before. You can't like Apocalypse Now anymore because, Coppola protected that awful child molester guy who did the Jeepers Creepers movies. I reject that idea. I mean, of course, it makes me think far less of Coppola as a person, but I don't know, did I ever really admire him as a person? I guess in some ways I did, as an artist or whatever, but maybe that was all just a big wank in the first place. In any case, there's still something to the art. All right, that was a lengthy preamble that I didn't know I was gonna do, but it seems like it was necessary to lay the foundation for the crazy thing that I'm about to say. All right, so the second and most controversial of the Indiana Jones trilogy, and I would say there's only 3 movies in the Indiana Jones trilogy. I do not include the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, nor especially not the whatever, I forgot the name of it now, but the one that came out a couple years ago with Indiana Jones as a sad old man getting dominated by this boss babe girl who's not really even that much of a babe. But anyway, the first three, they're legit in my mind. Now, the second movie was very controversial at the time because it was extremely gory and violent, and there were a lot of really upsetting scenes. There's a scene where a man gets his heart pulled out of his chest. There's a scene where Indy is forced to drink the blood of Kali Ma, and then he becomes this brainwashed, brainwashed member of the Thugi cult, or the Thugi cult, however it's pronounced. There's all these charges of racism, of course, naturally. And they have a point insofar as like the scenes with them eating monkey brains and eating live snakes and stuff. The gross out meal that wasn't true Indian cuisine. But otherwise, I don't. I don't care about that stuff. So here's the thing, though. The character's Short Round. I thought about, like, if Hollywood is this cult where these certain customs prevail with regard to children, where children are routinely exploited and taken advantage of, and you know what I'm saying, which we've seen ample evidence for. Well, what about the character of Short Round? Okay, in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones has this companion. He has this like 12-year-old Chinese boy who just goes around with him, and they have adventures together. And there's nothing in the movie, let me make this clear, there's nothing in the movie that would suggest there's anything sus about how Indy and Short Round relate to one another. They're just sort of, it's just a mentor, fatherly / uncle, like fun, Indy's more like a fun uncle, really, to Short Round. They joke around together, they play cards, and Short Round gets sassy about when he thinks Indy's cheating and stuff like that. And in 1984, when this movie dropped, they didn't say dropped back then, they just said released when it came out. There was nobody really said, why is this grown man going all around all around the world with this little boy? What's going on there? What's up with that? Obviously Short Round was this orphan, this street urchin, who Indy came across at some point in his travels and sort of adopted. But what you would think would be the responsible thing to do would be to say, let's get you in a boarding school or something. Let's get you somewhere where you can have a proper childhood. But instead, Indy says, "Hey kid, why don't you just come with me and we'll have adventures together." So and again, back in the 80s, nobody really. It was in many ways a more innocent time. Nobody really thought about that. Nobody really thought, You know, could something untoward be happening here? But we do know that in the first Indiana Jones movie, we do know that there was this whole issue with the character of Marion, and how Indy supposedly met her and seduced her when she was young, and that led to him losing his good friend. And we're not told in the movie how young she was, but there's a quote of George Lucas and Spielberg and Steven Spielberg talking about, and I think one other guy talking about what really happened between Indy and Marion, and how young she was, and Lucas was pushing for her to be 12 when they had a thing, and Spielberg was saying, I don't know, that's a little young. She should at least be 13. This is for real. This is really. But Lucas says something like, yeah, she was 12 and she was precocious, and she came on to him. And this is all true. This is all part of the record. Okay. And then they in the movie, you know, he gets back together with her. She's upset with him. She's furious. The first time she sees him, she punches him in the face and she says, you know, I was a child. It was wrong and you knew it. I was a little girl. I was in love. You took advantage of me. And he says, you knew what you were doing. So, I mean, I think we're given to understand that maybe she was 17 or 18, which still doesn't make it right, which still would, you know, be enough to have caused this rift between Indy and his good friend at the time. So my point is, the stuff is already there. It's already the implications of Indy liking him young, let's say. In this case, though, it's a girl. So, but I think that, you know, it's sort of I think things worked on different levels. And I think people who worked in Hollywood knew that things worked on different levels, and that, you know, the middle America, the squares out there in middle America with their conventional sexual morality, they wouldn't understand. But those of us who are more enlightened, you know, we can just we can wink at each other, you know. And I think maybe that was the whole idea with giving Indy this young Chinese boy as a companion. It was so that it's, you know, it works on two levels. There's no obvious, like I said, there's no innuendo that suggests there's anything untoward going on. But on the other hand, there's something untoward about the very fact that a man in his 30s or 40s is going around taking this little boy on all these gnarly experiences, like taking him down to, you know, into these rooms full of poisonous bugs, and then to this, you know, taking him on an airplane, them jumping out on a life raft, and all the crazy things that they did, along with Willie, of course, Willie Scott, Kate Capshaw, the blonde, the grown-up blonde. She was the real romantic interest for Indy in that movie. But anyway, I think my take on it is that this was placed there because the makers of these movies, you know, had a certain idea that maybe they thought of as a little too progressive or too advanced. The rest of us would just think of as perverted and sick. And it doesn't, you know, I don't like to think this about Spielberg and Lucas, especially Lucas. But I mean, it's Hollywood is Hollywood. Hollywood is Hollywood. And that's my take on the different levels of what I think is going on with Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.